I'll make that time. So, hello one and all, assuming that there is anybody out there. I am, for those of you who do not know, SkitterSkreetch. You can call me Skitter. And I am a little rat who was trapped inside this big old library and forced to read books by a lamp. Why? I'm not entirely clear. Before we get started today, I want to say thank you to Layla Chi, who has followed me. Always like to shout out a follower, even when it's offline. So, what are we doing today? Where are we going? Well, we're going to the library, obviously. Yeah, so today we have books. What books do we have? Heads, all that sorts. Right. Yeah, we got new books today, as we always do. Specifically, we got these two here, which are by F. Scott Fitzgerald. There is Babylon Revised, and I don't know if you can make out, the other one says Two Wrongs. It's a bit, it's surprisingly bright. Most of the books I get down here are a bit sort of faded and dull, but this one's very luminous. I think maybe it got dipped in something, but it's still legible, at least up close. Yeah, we got those two by Fitzgerald, and then over here you got The Decay of the Art of Lying by someone named Mark Twain. Got all three of these actually while I was learning about for that, or looking about in the pile near where I found those Runyon books from yesterday. Didn't find any more of them, unfortunately. You can sort of like, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but like if you get good enough or get used to enough looking through the library for books, you sort of learn to see like layers where like certain books from certain sections will come together, and it's like how'd you say, like geology, right? You get strata of like rocks, you get strata of books. I think I got done picking through the Runyon layer. I think these were some from somewhere else underneath that, but they look fairly promising, so we'll be having a look at them. Yeah. As always, if anyone has any comments, any thoughts, wants me to go over something again, feel free to speak up. And I will be doing little stops to go over things as we go. I think all of these are fairly short, so I'll probably stop at the end of them rather than part way through. Sometimes do. Babylon Revisited is maybe a bit long for that, so we might take like a halfway point break where I get a drink and have a drink and talk about some of it, but we'll see. We'll see how we feel. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I think we're just going to get on and get started. So, Babylon Revisited. Oh, this one has a little eye at the top, so I'm assuming it's actually got chapters. So that one. 1. And where's Mr. Campbell? Charlie asked. Gone to Switzerland. Mr. Campbell's a pretty sick man, Mr. Wells. I'm sorry to hear that. And George Art? Charlie inquired. Back in America. Gone to work. And where's the snowbird? He was in here last week. Anyway, his friend, Mr. Schaefer, is in Paris. 2 familiar names from the long list of a year and a half ago. Charlie scribbled an address in his notebook and tore out the page. If you see Mr. Schaefer, give him this, he said. It's my brother-in-law's address. I haven't settled on a hotel yet. We were not really disappointed to find Paris was so empty. The stillness in the Ritz bar was strange and portentous. It were not an American bar anymore. It felt polite in it, and not as if he owned it. It had gone back into France. He felt the stillness from the moment he got out of the taxi, saw the doorman, usually in a frenzy of activity at this hour, gossiping with a chasseur by the servants' entrance. Passing through the corridor, he heard only a single bald voice in the once clamorous women's room. When he turned into the bar, he travelled to 20 feet of green carpet with his eyes fixed straight ahead by old Abbott. And then, with a foot firmly on the rail, he turned and surveyed the room, encountering only a single pair of eyes that fluttered up from a newspaper in the corner. Charlie asked for the head barman, Paul, who was in the later days of the bull market, had come to work with in his own custom-built car, disembarking, however, with due nicety to the nearest corner. But Paul were at his country house today, and Alex giving him information. No more, Charlie said. I'm going to slow these days. I congratulated him. You're going pretty strong a couple of years ago. I'll stick to it all right, Charlie assured him. I've stuck to it for over a year and a half now. How do you find conditions in America? I haven't been to America for months. I'm in business in Prague, representing a couple of concerns there. They don't know about me down there. Alex smiled. Remember that night George Art's bachelor dinner here? Said Charlie. By the way, what's become of Claude Fessenden? Alex lowered his voice confidentially. He's in Paris, but he don't come by here anymore. Paul doesn't allow it. He ran up a bill of 30,000 francs, charging all his drinks and his lunches, and usually his dinner, for more than half a year. When Paul finally told him he had to pay, he gave him a bad cheque. Alex shook his head sadly. I don't understand it, such a dandy fellow. Now he's all blighted up. He made a plump apple with his hands. Charlie watched a group of strong queens installing themselves in a corner. Nothing affects them, he thought. Stocks rise and fall, people low for work, but they go on forever. The place oppressed him. He called for the dice and shook with Alex for the drink. Here for long, Mr. Wells? I'm here for 4 or 5 days to see my little girl. Oh, you have a little girl. Outside, the fire-red, gas-blue, ghost-green sign shone smokily through the tranquil rain. It was late afternoon, and the street were in movement. A bistro's gleam. At the corner of the Boulevard de Capuchin, he took a taxi. The Place de la Concorde moved by a pink majesty. Across the logical Seine, and Charlie felt the southern provincial quality of the left bank. Charlie directed his taxi to the Avenue de l'Opéra, which was out of his way. He wanted to see the blue spread over the magnificent facade, and he imagined the cab horns playing endlessly the first few bars of Les Bleus Grillons, or the trumpets of the Second Empire. They were closing the iron grill in front of Brentano's bookstore, and people were already at dinner behind the trim little bourgeois edge of Duval's. He had never eaten at a really cheap restaurant in Paris. 5-course dinner, 4 francs 50, 18 cents, wine included. For some odd reason, he wished he had. As they rode onto the left bank and he felt its sudden provincialism, he thought, I spoiled this city for myself. I didn't realise it, but the days came along one after another, and then 2 years were gone and everything were gone, and I were gone. He was 35 and good to look at. The Irish mobility of his face was sewed up by a deep wrinkle between his eyes. As he rang his brother-in-law's bell in the Rue Plantain, the wrinkle deepened and it poured down his brow. He felt a cramping sensation in his belly. From behind, the maid who opened the door darted a lovely little girl in iron, who shrieked, Daddy! And flew up, struggling like a fish in his arms. She pulled his head around by one ear and set her cheek against his. My old pies. Oh, Daddy, 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 Dads, Dads, Dads. She drew him into the salon where the family waited, a boy and a girl at his daughter's age, his sister-in-law and her husband. He greeted Marion with his voice pitched carefully to avoid either feigned enthusiasm or dislike, but her response was more frankly tepid, though she minimised her expression of unalterable distrust by directing her regard towards his child. The 2 men clasped hands in a friendly way, and Lincoln Peters rested his for a moment on Charlie's shoulder. The room was warm and comfortably American. The 3 children moved intimately about, playing through the yellow oblongs that led to the other rooms. The cheer of 6 o'clock spoke in the eager smacks of the fire and sound of French activity in the kitchen. But Charlie did not relax. His heart sat up rigidly in his body, and he drew confidence from his daughter, who from time to time came close to him, holding in her arms a doll that he had bought. Really extremely well, he declared in answer to Lincoln's question. There's a lot of business there that isn't moving at all, but we're doing even better than ever. In fact, damn well I'm bringing my sister over from America next month to keep house for me. My income last year was bigger than it was when I had money. You see the checks. His boasting were for a specific purpose. After a moment, seeing a faint restiveness in Lincoln's eye, he changed the subject. Those are fine children of yours, well brought up, good manners. We think Honorine is a great little girl too. Marion Peters came back from the kitchen. She was a tall woman with worried eyes, who had once been possessed of fresh American loveliness. Charles had never been sensitive to it, and was always surprised when people spoke to how pretty she had been. From the first there had been an instinctive antipathy between the 2 of them. Well, how do you find Honoria? She asked. Wonderful. I was astonished how much she's grown. 10 months. All the children are looking well. You haven't had a doctor for a year. How do you like being back in Paris? It seems funny, very funny to see some Americans around. I'm delighted, Marion said vehemently. Now at least you can go into a store without their assuming you're a millionaire. You've suffered like everybody, but on the whole it's a good deal pleasanter. It was sort of nice while it lasted, Charlie said. We were sort of royalty, almost infallible, with a sort of magic around us. In the bar this afternoon, he stumbled, seeing his mistake. I wasn't the man I knew. She looked at him keenly. I should think you've had enough of bars. I only stayed a minute. I take 1 drink every afternoon and no more. Don't you want a cocktail before dinner? Lincoln asked. I take only 1 drink every afternoon and I've had that. I hope you keep to it, said Marion. Her dislike were evident in the coldness with which she spoke, but Charlie only smiled. He had larger plans. Her very aggressiveness gave him an advantage, and he knew enough to wait. He wanted them to initiate the discussion of what they knew had brought him to Paris. At dinner, he couldn't decide whether Honoria were most like him or her mother. Fortunately, if she didn't combine the traits above that brought him disaster, a great wave of protectiveness went over him. He thought he knew what to do for her. He believed in character. He wanted to jump back a whole generation and trust in character again. It's the eternally valuable element. Everything else wore out. He left soon after dinner, but not to go home. He was curious to see Paris by night, clearer and more judicious eyes than those of other days. He bought a strap-on dinner for the casino and watched Josephine Baker go through a chocolate arboresque. After an hour he left and strolled towards Montmartre, the Rue Pigalle and the Place Blanche. The rain had stopped and there were a few people in the evening clothes disembarking in taxis in front of cabarets and coquettes, prowling singly or in pairs, and many negroes. He passed a lighted door from which issued music, and stopped with a sense of familiarity. There were brick-tops where he had parted with so many hours and so much money. A few doors farther on he found another ancient rendezvous, and then cautiously put his head inside. Immediately an eager orchestra burst into sound. A pair of professional dancers leaped to their feet, and a maitre d'hotel swooped towards him, crying, "Crowd just arriving, sir." He withdrew quickly. You have to be damn drunk, he thought. His alleys were closed. Bleak and sinister cheap hotels surrounding it were dark. Up in the Rue Blanche there were more light and a local colloquial French crowd. The Poet's Cave had disappeared. The two great mouths of the Café Evan and the Café L still yawned, even devoured as he watched the meagre contents of a tourist bus. A German, a Japanese and an American couple who glanced at him with frightened eyes. So much for the effort and ingenuity of Montmartre. All the catering of ice and waste was on an utterly childish scale. He suddenly realised the meaning of the word dissipate. Dissipate in a thin air, make nothing out of something. In the little hours of the night, every move from place to place was an enormous human jump, an increase of paying for the privilege of slower and slower motion. He remembered 1,000-franc notes given to him He remembered 1,000-franc notes given an orchestra for playing a single number, 100-franc notes tossed to a doorman for calling a cab. They hadn't been given for nothing. It had been given, even the most wildly squandered sum, as an offering of destiny, that he might not remember the thing most worth remembering. The thing that now he would always remember. His child taken from his control. His wife escaped to a grave in Vermont. The glare of a brasserie, a woman spoke to him. He bought her some eggs and coffee, and then, eluding her encouraging stare, gave her a 20-franc note and took a taxi to his hotel. That's the end of chapter 1. I suppose I will do a little bit of thinking. Let's see. So, it is interesting because we see a man coming back to a place, reminiscing on his glory days, and there's obviously hints of things to come. The wife and the child, and the decline of the city of Paris. Not that I've never known a city of Paris that wasn't very declined itself. Bad place even for a rat. But, yeah. He's here for some purpose and we're not clear what on. Oh yeah, I think it's all mostly set up to this point. There's a distinctly sort of dismal air, which is interesting. This is a place past its prime. Past itself. Also devoid of Americans. Sort of a reclaiming and changing. We see a man who is of a different time. Coming to a place much changed. Though apparently it's only been, what, did it say a year and a half? So, changing quickly, it seems. Yeah, without further ado, let's press on. 2. He woke up on a fine full day. Football weather. The depression of yesterday were gone, and he liked the people on the streets. At noon, he sat opposite Honoré Le Grand Vatel, the only restaurant he could clean to think of, not reminiscent of champagne dinners and long luncheons that began at 2 and ended in blurred and vague twilight. Now about vegetables. Aren't you out to have some vegetables? Oh yes. Here's épinards and chou-fleur and carrots and arrows. I'd like the chou-fleur. And you like to have 2 vegetables? I usually only have 1 at lunch. I were pretending to be inordinately fond of children. Qu'il est mignon le petit. Elle parle exactement comme en français. How about dessert? Shall we wait and see? Right, had disappeared. Maria looked at her father expectantly. What are you going to do? First, we're going to the toy store in the Rue Saint-Honore and buy you anything you like. And then we're going to the vaudeville at Empire. So he hesitated. I don't care about the vaudeville, not the toy store. Why not? Oh, you bought me this doll. She had it with her. And I've got lots of things. We're not rich anymore, are we? We never were. Today you are to have anything you want. All right, she agreed resignedly. When there had been a mother and a French nurse, he had been inclined to be strict. Now he extended himself, reached out for renewed tolerance. It must be both parents to her, and not shut out any of her communication. I want to get to know you, he said gravely. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Charles J. Wells of Prague. Oh, Daddy, the voice cracked with laughter. And who are you, please? He persisted, and she accepted her role immediately. Honoria Wells, Rue Palatine, Paris. Married or single? No, not married, single. He indicated the door. I see you have a child, madame. Unwilling to disinherit, she took it to her heart and thought quickly. Yes, I've been married, but I'm not married now. My husband is dead. He went on quickly. And the child's name? Simone. It's after my best friend at school. I'm very pleased that you're doing so well at school. I'm third this month, she boasted. Elsie, who was a cousin, is only about 18, and Richard is about the bottom. You like Richard, Elsie, don't you? Oh yes, I like Richard quite well, and like her all right. Cautiously and casually he asked, Aunt Marion and Uncle Lincoln, which do you like best? Oh, Uncle Lincoln, I guess. We were increasingly aware of their presence. As they came in, a murmur of adorable followed them, and now the people at the next table bent all their silences upon her, staring as if she was something no more conscious than a flower. Why don't I live with you? She said suddenly. Because Mama's dead. You must stay here and learn more French. It would have been hard for Daddy to take care of you so well. I don't really need much taking care of anymore. I do everything for myself. Going out of the restaurant, a man and a woman unexpectedly hailed them. Well there, old Wells. Hello, Lorraine. Doom? Suddenly ghost out of the past. Duncan Schaefer was with Duncan. Suddenly ghost out of the past. Duncan Schaefer, a friend from college. Lorraine Quarles, a lovely pale blonde of 30. One of a crowd who had helped them make the months and the days and the lavish times of 3 years ago. My husband couldn't come this year, she said in answer to his question. He was poor as hell, so he gave me $200 a month and told me I could do my worst on that. Is your little girl? What about coming back and sitting down? Duncan asked. Can't do it. He was glad for an excuse. As always, he felt Lorraine's passionate, provocative attraction. His own rhythms were different now. Well, how about dinner? She asked. I'm not free. Give me your address, son. Let me call you. Charlie, I believe you're sober. Charlie, I believe you're sober, she said judiciously. I honestly believe he's sober, Doc. Pinch him and see if he's sober. Charlie indicated her on her ear with his head. They both looked. What's your address? Said Duncan skeptically. He hesitated, unwilling to give them the name of his hotel. I'm not settled yet. I'd better call you. We're going to see the vaudeville at the Empire. Yeah, that's what I want to do, Ranger said. I want to see some clowns and acrobats and jugglers. That's just what we'll do, Doc. No, we've got to do an errand first, said Charlie. Perhaps we'll see you there? All right, you snob. Goodbye, beautiful little girl. Goodbye. Honoria bobbed politely. Somehow an unwelcome encounter. They liked him because he was functioning, because he was serious. They wanted to see him because he was stronger than they were now, because they wanted to draw a certain sustenance from his strength. At the Empire, Honoria proudly refused to sit upon her father's folded coat. She was already an individual with a code of her own, and Charlie was more and more aboard by the desire of putting a little of himself into her before she crystallised up. More and more absorbed by the desire of putting a little more of himself into her before she crystallised up. It was hopeless to try and know her in so short a time. Between the acts, they came upon Duncan and Lorraine in the lobby. The band was playing. Have a drink? Oh, all right, but not up at the bar. We'll take a table. Perfect for father. Listening abstractedly to Lorraine, Charlie watched her on Maria's eyes leave the table, and they followed them wistfully about the room, wondering what they saw. He met a glance and she smiled. I like that lemonade, she said. What she said? What do you expect? Going home in a taxi afterwards, he pulled her over until her head rested against his chest. Darling, you ever think about your mother? Yes, sometimes, she answered vaguely. I don't want you to forget her. You got a picture of her? Yes, I think so. Anyhow, Aunt Marion has. Why don't you want me to forget her? She loved you very much. I loved her too. They were silent for a moment. Daddy, I want to come and live with you, he said suddenly. His heart leapt. You won't ever come like this. Aren't you perfectly happy? Yes, I love you better than anybody. And you love me better than anybody, don't you? Mummy's dead. Of course I do. But you don't always like me best, eh? You grow up and meet somebody your own age and go marry him. If you ever had a daddy. Yes, that's true, he agreed tranquilly. He didn't go in. You were coming back at 9 o'clock, but you wanted to keep yourself fresh and new. Then you must say that. When you're safe inside, just show yourself at that window. All right. Goodbye, Dad. You waited in the dark street until she appeared, all warm and glowing in the window above, kissed her fingers out in the night. That's the end of chapter 2. These are only really snippets, there's not a lot to say after them. But, yeah, I mean, he's trying to rebuild or reconnect the story. He's not doing a bad job of it, although he seems haunted by his past. But once he enjoyed it, now he doesn't be careful. Remember the third. 3. They were waiting. Marion sat behind the coffee service in a dignified black dinner dress, just faintly suggested mourning. Lincoln were walking up and down with the animation of one who had already been talking. They were anxious as he were to get on with the question. He opened it almost immediately. I suppose you know what I want to see you about. I really came to Paris. Marion played with the black stars on her necklace and frowned. I'm awfully anxious to have an home, he continued. I'm awfully anxious to have Honoria in it. I appreciate you taking Honoria for her mother's sake. Things have changed now. He hesitated and then continued more forcibly. Changed radically with me, and I want to ask you to reconsider that. It'd be silly for me to deny that about 3 years ago I was acting badly. Marion looked up at him with a very hard eye. Oh, that's over. As I told you, I haven't had more than a drink a day for over a year. I take that drink deliberately, so the idea of alcohol won't get too big in my imagination. You see the idea? No, said Marion. It's a sort of stunt I set myself. Keeps the matter in proportion. I'll get you. You don't want to admit it's got any attraction for you. Something like that. Sometimes I forget and don't take it. I try to take it. Anyhow, I couldn't afford a drink in my position. People I represent are more than satisfied with what I've done. I'm bringing my sister over from Berlin to take my house from me, and I want awfully to have Honoria too. You know, even when her mother and I weren't getting along well, we never let anything that happened touch Honoria. I know she's fond of me, and I know I'm able to take care of her, and, well, there you are. How do you feel about it? I knew that now he would have to take a beating. It would last an hour or 2 hours. It would be difficult. If he modulated his inevitable resentment to the chastened attitude of the reformed sinner, he might win his point in the end. Keep your temper, he told himself. You don't want to be justified. You want Honoria. Lincoln spoke first. We've been talking it over ever since we got your letter last month. We're happy to have Honoria here. She's dealing with it. We're glad to be able to help her. But of course, this isn't the question. Marion interrupted suddenly. How long are you going to stay sober, Charlie? She asked. Permanently, I hope. How could anybody count on it? No, I never did drink heavily until I gave up business and came over here with nothing to do. Then Helen and I began to run around with, please leave Helen out. I can't bear to hear you talk about her. He stared at her grimly. You'd never been certain of how fond you'd never been certain of how fond of each other the sisters were in love. Our drinking only lasted about a year and a half, from the time we came over until I collapsed. It was time enough. He agreed. My duty's entirely to Helen, she said. I tried to think what she might have wanted me to do. Frankly, from the night you did that terrible thing, you haven't really existed for me. I can't help that. She was my sister. Yes. When she was dying, she asked me to look out for Honoria. If you hadn't been in a sanatorium, then it might have helped her. He had no answer. I'll never in my life be able to forget the morning when Helen knocked at my door, soaked to the skin and shivering, and said you'd locked her out. Charlie gripped the side of the chair. This was more difficult than he expected. He wanted to launch out in a long explanation, a long expostulation. The other said, then I locked her out, and she interrupted. I don't feel up to going over that again. After a moment's silence, Lincoln said, we're getting off the subject. You want Marion to set aside her legal guardianship and give you Honoria. I think the main point for her is whether she has confidence in you or not. I don't blame Marion, Charlie said slowly, but I think she can have entire confidence in me. I had a good ride caught up with 3 years ago. Of course, it's within human possibilities. I might go wrong any time. If we make much longer, I'll lose Honoria's charm, my chance for an own. He shook his head. I'll simply lose it, don't you see? Yes, I see, said Lincoln. Why didn't you think of all this before? Marion asked. I suppose I did from time to time. Helen and I were getting along badly. When I consented to the guardianship, I would flatten my back in a sanatorium. The market would clear me out. I knew I'd acted badly. I thought if it would bring any peace to Ellen, I'd agree to anything. That's different. I'm functioning, behaving damn well so far as... Please don't swear at me. He looked at her, startled. She remarked, the force of her dislike became more and more apparent. She built up all of her fear of life into one wall and faced it towards him. This trivial reproof was possibly the result of some trouble with the cook several hours before. Charlie had become increasingly alarmed, leaving on her ear in this atmosphere of hostility against himself. Sooner or later it would come out in a word here, a shake of the head there. Some of that distrust would be irrevocably implanted in her ear. But he pulled his temper down out of his face and shut up inside him. He'd won a point, but Lincoln realised the absurdity of Marian's remark and asked her lightly since when she had objected to the word damn. Another thing, Charlie said. I'm able to give her certain advantages now. I'm going to take a French governess to pro with me. I've got a lease on a new apartment. He stopped, realising that he was blundering. They couldn't be accepted to accept with equanimity the fact that his income was again twice as large as their own. I suppose you can give them more luxuries than we can, said Marian. You were throwing away money. We were living along watching every 10 francs. I suppose you'll start doing it again. Oh, no, he said. I've learned. I worked hard for 10 years, you know, until I got lucky in the market like so many people. Terribly lucky. It won't happen again. There were a long silence. All of them felt their nerves straining. For the first time in years, Charlie wanted a drink. He was sure now that Lincoln Peters wanted him to help his child. Marian shuddered suddenly. Part of her saw that Charlie's feet were planted on the earth now, and her own maternal feelings recognised the naturalness of his desire. That she had lived for a long time with a prejudice founded on a curious disbelief in her sister's happiness, on which, in the shock of one terrible night, had turned into hatred for him. It all happened at a point in her life when the discouragement of ill health and adverse circumstances made it necessary for her to believe in tangible villainy and tangible villain. I can't help what I think, she cried out suddenly. How much you were responsible for Helen's death? I don't know. It's something you'll have to square with your own conscience. An electric current of agony surged through him. For a moment, he was almost lost to his feet. He was almost on his feet, and I heard sound echoing in his throat. He hung on to himself for a moment. Another moment. Hold on there, said Lincoln uncomfortably. I never thought you were responsible for that. Helen died of heart trouble, Charlie said dully. Yes, heart trouble, Marian spoke as if the phrase had another meaning for her. Then, in the flatness that followed her outburst, she saw him plainly, and she knew he had somehow arrived at control over the situation. Glancing at her husband, she found no help from him, and as abruptly as if it were a matter of no importance, she threw up the sponge. Do what you like, she cried, springing up from her chair. She's your child, I'm not the person to stand in your way. And if it were my child, I'd rather see her, she managed to check herself. He had to decide. I can't stand this, I'm sick. I'm going to bed. She hurried from the room after a moment. Lincoln said, this has been a hard day for her. You know how strongly she feels. His voice was almost apologetic. When a woman gets an idea in her head. Of course. It's going to be alright. I think she sees now that you can provide for the child. So we can't very well stand in your way or on her ears way. Thank you, Lincoln. I better go along now, see how she is. I'm going. He was still trembling when he reached the street, but walked down the Rue Bonaparte with the quays set him up. As he crossed the Seine, fresh and new by the quay lamps, he felt exultant. But back in his room, he couldn't sleep. The image of Ellen haunted him. Ellen whom he had loved so until they had sensitively begun to abuse each other's love, tear it into shreds. On that terrible February night, Marian remembered, so vividly, the slow quarrel had gone on for hours. There was a scene at the Florida, and he attempted to take her home, and then she kissed young Webb at the table after that and she kissed young Webb at a table. After that, there was what she had hysterically said. When he arrived home alone, he turned the key in the lock, wild with anger. How could he know she would arrive an hour later alone? There would be a snowstorm in which she would wander about in slippers, too confused to find a taxi. In the aftermath, her escape of pneumonia by a miracle, and all the attendant horror. They were reconciled, but that was the beginning of the end. And Marian, who had seen with her own eyes, and imagined it to be one of many scenes from her sister's martyrdom, never forgot. Going over it again, brought Helen nearer, and the white soft light that steals upon our sleep in the morning, he found himself talking to her again. She said that he was perfectly right about Honoria. She wanted Honoria to be with him. She said that she was glad he was being good, doing better. She said a lot of other things, very friendly things. That she was in a swing in a white dress, and swinging faster and faster all the time. At the end, he could not hear clearly all that she said. That's rough. Don't know what to say about that, really. I mean, it's a pretty awful thing he done, but it was also clearly an accident, and there'd been some going on between them. And also, the story we read yesterday about a man and his wife having troubles wound up with her in a sack getting shot by her lover, so it's hard for me to judge so strongly. Still, he seems in a pretty sorry state, even though he's trying to make himself a better man. I suppose you can respect it. Alright then, let's press on. 4. He woke up feeling happy. The door of the world were open again. He made plans, vistas, futures for Honoria and himself. Suddenly he grew sad, remembering all the plans he and Ellen had made. He had not planned to die. Present with the thing. Work to do and someone to love. Not to love so much, too much. For he knew the injury the father can do to a daughter, or another to a son, by attaching them too closely. Afterward, out in the world, the child will seek in the marriage partner the same blind tenderness, failing probably to find it, going against love and life. It was another bright, crisp day. He called Lincoln Peters at the bank where he worked and asked to be accountant taken Honoria when he left for Prague. Lincoln agreed that there was no reason for delay. One thing, a legal guardianship. Marion wanted to retain that a while longer. She was upset with the whole matter, and with all things, if she felt the situation was still under control for another year. Charlie agreed, wanting only the tangible, visible child. Then the question of a governess. Charlie sat in a gloomy agency and talked to a cross Baroness and to a buxom Breton peasant, neither of whom he could have endured. There were others whom he would see tomorrow. He lunched with Lincoln Peters at Griffin's, trying to keep down his exultation. It's nothing quite like your own child, Lincoln said. You understand how Marion feels too. She's forgotten how hard I worked for 7 years there, Charlie said. He just remembers one night. There's another thing, Lincoln hesitated. While you and Helen were tearing around Europe throwing money away, we were just getting on. Oh, this is Lincoln, sorry. What was different? There's another thing, Lincoln hesitated. While you and Helen were tearing around Europe throwing money away, we were just getting along. I didn't touch any of the prosperity because I never got an head enough to carry anything but my insurance. I think Marion felt there was some kind of injustice in it. You're not even working towards the end, just getting richer and richer. And just as quick as it came, said Charlie. Yes, a lot of it stayed in the hands of chasseurs and saxophone players and maîtres d'hôtel. And the big party's over now. I just said that to explain Marion's feelings about those crazy years. He'd drop in about 6 o'clock at night before Marion's too tired was sent the details on the spot. Back at his hotel, Charlie found a pneumatic that had been redirected from the Ritz bar where Charlie had left his address for the purpose of finding a certain man. Dear Charlie, it was so strange when you saw you the other day. I wondered if I did something to offend you. If so, I'm not conscious of it. In fact, I have thought about you too much for the last year. It's always been in the back of my mind that I might see you if I came over here. We did have such a good time, that's crazy spring. Like the night you and I stole the butcher's tricycle. The time we tried to call on the president to see you. And you had the old derby rim and the wire cane. Everybody seems so old lately. I don't feel old, a bit. Couldn't we get together sometime today for old time's sake? Got a vile hangover for the moment, but we'll be feeling that this afternoon. And we'll look for you about 5 in the sweatshop at the Ritz. Always devotedly, Lorraine. His first feeling of all that he had actually, in his mature years, stolen a tricycle and pedalled Lorraine all over the etoile between the small hours and dawn. In retrospect, it were a nightmare. Knocking out Ellen didn't fit in any way with the other acts of his life. The tricycle incident did, but one of many. How many weeks and months of dissipation were over that condition of utter irresponsibility? He tried to picture how Lorraine had appeared to him then, very attractive. Ellen were unhappy about it, though she said nothing. Yesterday in the restaurant, Lorraine had seemed trite, blurred, worn away. He emphatically did not want to see her, and were glad Alex had not given away his hotel address. It was a relief to think instead of Honoria, think of Sundays spent with her, saying good morning to her and knowing she were there in his house at night, drawing her breath in the darkness. Father took a taxi and bought presents for all the Peters, pecan cross doll, a box of Roman soldiers, flowers for Marion, Bigley and handkerchiefs for Lincoln. He saw when he arrived in the apartment that Marion had accepted the inevitable. She greeted him now as though he were a recalcitrant member of the family rather than a menacing outsider. Honoria had been told she was going. Charlie was glad to see her back, made her conceal her excessive happiness. Only in his lap did she whisper to her delight the question, "When?" Before she slipped away with the other children. He and Marion were alone for a minute in the room, and on an impulse he spoke out boldly. Family quarrels are better things. Don't go according to any rules. They're not like aches or wounds, more like splits in the skin of the body, or because there's not enough material. I wish you were like that. Some things are hard to forget, she answered. It's a question of confidence. Going on to this, and presently she asked, "When do you propose to take her?" "As soon as I can get a governess. Won't be after tomorrow." "It's impossible. I've got to get her things in shape. Not Saturday." He yielded. Going back into the room, Lincoln offered him a drink. "I'll take my daily whiskey," he said. "It's warm here. We're at home, people together by a fire." The children felt very safe and important. The mother and father were serious, watchful. They had things to do for the children more important than his visit here. A spoonful of medicine was, after all, more important than the strained relations between Marion and himself. They were not dull people, but were very much in the grip of life and circumstance. He wondered if he couldn't do something to get Lincoln out of his rut at the bank. A long peal at the doorbell, one or two fair, passed through and went down the corridor. The door opened upon another long ring, and then voices. The three in the saloon looked up expectantly. Bishop moved to bring the corridor within his range of vision. Marion rose, and the maid came back along the corridor, closely followed by the voices, which developed under the light of Duncan Schaefer and Lorraine Quarry. They were gay, they were hilarious, they were roaring with laughter. For a moment Charlie were astounded, unable to understand how they ferreted out Peter's address. "Ah!" Duncan waved his finger roguishly at Charlie. "Ah!" They both slid down in another cascade of laughter. Anxious and at a loss, Charlie shook hands with them quickly, presenting the Lincoln and Marion. Marion nodded, scarcely speaking. Drawn back a step towards the fire. A little good girl stood behind her. Marion put an arm round her shoulder. With growing annoyance at the intrusion, Charlie waited for them to explain themselves. After some concentration, Duncan said, "We came over while you had to dinner. Lorraine and I insist that all this she cagey business about your dress got to stop." Charlie came closer to them and forced her back down the corridor. "Sorry, but I can't. Tell me where you'll be, and I'll find you in half an hour." This made no impression. Lorraine sat down suddenly on the side of the chair, and focusing her eyes on Richard, cried, "Oh, what a nice little boy. Come here, little boy." Richard glanced at his mother, but did not move. With a perceptible shrug of the shoulders, Lorraine turned back to Charlie. "Come and dine. I'm sure your cousin won't mind. See, it's so solemn." "I can't," Charlie shouted. "You need to have dinner, and I'll phone you." Her voice became suddenly unpleasant. "All right, we'll go. I remember once when you hammered on my door at 4 a.m. I was enough of a good sport to give you a drink. Come on, Dunk." Still in slow motion, with blurred, angry faces, uncertain feet, they retired along the corridor. "Good night," Charlie said. "Good night," responded Lorraine emphatically. When they went back into the salon, Marion had not moved, and now her son was standing in a circle of her other. Lincoln was still swinging Honoria back and forth like a pendulum, side to side. "What an outrage," Charlie broke out. "What an absolute outrage." Neither of them answered. Charlie dropped into an armchair, picked up his drink, sat down again and said, "People I haven't seen for 2 years have a colossal nerve." He broke off. Marion had made a sound. "Oh." And one swift, furious breath turned the body from him with a jerk and left the room. Lincoln sat down on her ear carefully. "You children go in and start your soup," he said. When they obeyed, he said to Charlie, "Marion's not well. She can't stand shocks. Kind of people make her really physically sick. Don't tell them to come in. I warned your name out something deliberately. That's too bad. Doesn't help matters. Excuse me a minute." Left alone, Charlie sat tense in his chair. In the next room, he could hear the children eating, talking in monosyllables, already oblivious to the scene between their elders. He heard a murmur of conversation from the farther room, and the ticking bell of a telephone receiver picked up, and in a panic he moved to the other side of the room and out of earshot. In a minute, Lincoln come back. "Look here, Charlie, I think we'd better call off dinner tonight. Marion's in bad shape." "She angry?" "Sort of," he said, almost roughly. "She's not strong, and he means she's changed her mind about Honoria. She's pretty bitter right now. I don't know. You phone me at the bank tomorrow." I should explain why I never dreamed these people would come in. I'm just as sore as you are. I couldn't explain anything right now. Charlie got up. He took his coat and hat and started down the corridor. They opened the door of the dining room and said in a strange voice, "Good night, children." Honoria rose and ran around the table. Good night, sweetheart, he said vaguely, then trying to make his voice more tender, trying to conciliate something. Good night, dear children. That's the end of chapter 4. And we see everything go wrong. That's a tough one, that is. He's genuinely not in the wrong there. These people just come out of nowhere, follow him. Sense things wrong anyway, all the same. It's a shame, really. He does seem like he's doing everything right at the minute. Now the past haunts you, doesn't it? The past does, doesn't it? Press on then, chapter 5. Charlie went directly to the Ritz bar with the furious idea of finding Lorraine and Duncan. They were not there, and he realised that in any case there was nothing he could do. He had not touched his drinking papers, and now he ordered a whiskey and soda. Walking over to say hello. Great change, he said sadly. We do about half the business we did. So many fellows I hear about back in the States lost everything. Maybe not in the first crash, but in the second. My friends George Hart lost every cent I had. You back in the States? No, I'm in business in Prague. I heard that you lost a lot in the crash. I did, he added grimly. I lost everything I wanted in the boom. I lost everything I wanted in the boom. Selling shop? Something like that. Again, the memory of those days swept over him like a nightmare. The people that he had met travelling, the people who couldn't have row of figures or speak a coherent sentence. Little man Ellen had consented to dance with the ship's party who had insulted them 10 feet from the table. Women and girls carried screaming with drink or drugs out of public places. Men who locked their wives out in the snow because the snow at 29 wasn't real snow. You didn't want any snow, you just paid some money. Went on the phone and called the pizza partner. Lincoln answered. I called up because this thing is on my mind. Marion said anything definite. Marion's sick. I wasn't sure. I know this thing isn't altogether your fault, but I can't ever go to pieces about it. I'm afraid we'll have to let it slide for 6 months. I can't take the chance of working out this state again. I see. I'm sorry, Charlie. He went back to his table. His whiskey glass were empty. He shook his head when Alex looked at him questioningly. Not much he could do now, except send on her ear some things. He would send her a lot of things tomorrow. Thought rather angrily that this was just money. He given so many people money. No, no more, said another end. What do I owe you? He would come back someday. He couldn't make him pay forever. He wasn't his child. Nothing was much good now. Besides that fact, he wasn't young anymore. A lot of nice thoughts and dreams to have by himself. You're absolutely sure Ellen wouldn't have wanted him to be so alone. That's the end of Babylon Revisited. Christ, is that not a bleak little story, yeah? It's a very self-contained little thing. There's not too much to it. In fact, well, let's see, time-wise, 45 minutes wraps, so just a little mouthful of a story, really. But it manages to do a lot. It feels longer, I think, mostly because it is dwelling so much on a past that is so present in it. Oh, we don't actually see much of that past play out. Does a really good job of getting you in the head of the character, like Charlie. And I think it helps that I do really genuinely quite like him. Like, you can see that he has had his dark moments, he's been in a bad place, but he is doing everything right. This isn't one of those stories where he makes a bad choice and messes everything up. He knows what he means to do, he does the right thing, he's genuinely in the right. He's not denying that he's done wrong, and he's here to own up for it and try and make things right. And it still goes wrong. Makes you feel bad for him. It also makes for a very compelling bit of narrative. What else is there? I suppose it's the story of what the boom and the collapse, which what would be, I think, the Great Depression. Which is an interesting thing. I've heard of Fitzgerald before. I know he's famous for writing about the sort of Roaring Twenties, which makes this an interesting sort of take from him. The post-20s, the end of it all. A dark look back on the time that was. It's an interesting little story. I do like it. I think it's a good one. Wasn't too much to it, but it was impactful, I suppose. Weight had some gravitas to it. Not a particularly happy story, but you know, don't always have to be a happy one. Compelling, that's it. Yeah. I'm tempted to skip over the Twain and then come back to Fitzgerald, just sort of do an in out thing, but I am looking very much forward to the Twain, because I do like the idea of the art of lying. I think I'll save that for last. Also, it means that I'm keeping all of the Fitzgeralds in one little block, if anyone is interested in them specifically. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, this is 2 wrongs, which... Now I think about it, that's quite a downside title as well. I didn't really think about Babylon Revisited because, well, I don't get the reference. There's something there that I don't understand. But this sounds grim, and that was quite grim. So I read that we're going on quite a grim Fitzgerald tangent here, so I'm hoping that the Twain is quite fun. Yeah. Well, this one's a picture of him on it. Cover. Huh. No, for a man who writes with such feeling, he's very square looking. Yeah. Anyway, let's be about it, shall we? Ooh, this one's a little difficult to read. My type is quite small, and I'm fairly certain I was dumping something because it's almost glowing that bright. Well, our best shot, right? 2 wrongs. Oh, and there's a bet 1930. 1. This is also brown on the channel. I think it's a little, well, it's a little bit short of our page count than the last one, but it is also in smaller types, so it's probably about the same length overall, I think. Maybe not. Look at those shoes, said Bill. $28. Miss Brunowski, look. 30. Made to order. I knew you were a great swell. You didn't get me up here just to show me those shoes, did you? I'm not a great swell. Who said I were a great swell? Just because I've got more education than most people in show business. And then you know you're a handsome young fellow, said Brankuski dryly. Sure I am. Better you anyhow. The girls think I must be an actor till I find out. Got a cigarette. What's more, I look like a man, which is more than some of these pretty boys around Times Square do. Good-looking gentleman, good shoes. Shop with them. You're on there, objected Bill. Brains. 3 years, 9 shows, 4 begins, only 1 flop. Where do you see any luck in that? A little bored, Brankuski just gave. What he would have seen, he had not made his eyes opaque and taken, had he not made his eyes opaque and taken the thing about something else. For a fresh-faced young Irishman, exuding aggressiveness and self-confidence, till the air of his office was thick with it. Presently, Brankuski knew Bill would hear the sound of his own voice and be ashamed and retire into his other humour. Quietly superior, sensitive one, a patron of arts, model on the intellectuals of the Theatre Guild. Bill McChesney had not quite decided between the two. Such blends are seldom completely thought about. Take Ames, take Hopkins, take Harris, take any of them. Bill insisted. What have they got on me? What's the matter? You want a drink? Then Brankuski's glance wandered towards the cabin to the opposite one. I never drink in the mornings. I just wondered who it was who keeps on knocking. Got to make it stop. They have nervous fidgets, kind of half crazy, that kind of thing. Down quickly to the door and threw it open. Nobody. Hello? What do you want? Oh, I'm sorry, a voice asked. Terribly sorry, I got so excited I didn't realise I had a pencil in my hand. What do you want? I want to see you, and the clerk said you were busy. I have a letter for you. Madeline Rogers. Playwright? I want to give it to you personally. I'm busy. Bill. See Mr. Cardona. See Mr. Cardona. I did, but he wasn't very encouraging. Mr. Rogers said. Brankuski edged over restlessly. A quick look at her. She was very young, with beautiful red hair, and more character in her face than the chatter would indicate. It did not occur to Mr. Brankuski this was due to her origin in Delaney, South Carolina. What shall I do? She inquired quietly, laying her future at those. I handed a letter to Mr. Rogers, and he just gave me this one. I handed a letter to Mr. Rogers, and he just gave me this one to you. What do you want me to do? Marry you? Exploded Bill. I'd like to get a part in one of your plays. Sit down and wait. I'm busy. There's Mr. Colin. Rang a bell, looked around once, crossly. Looked once more, crossly at the bell, and closed the door of his office. During the interruption, his other mood had come over him, and he resumed his conversation with Brankuski in the key of one who was the hand in glove with running heart for the artistic future of the theatre. I'm Russian. Deep breath. The book is a little bit weird to read, to be honest. Head on straight. By 12:30, he'd forgotten everything except that he would go in and be the greatest producer in the world, and he had an engagement with Dale Sol Lincoln about it at lunch. Emerging from his office, he looked expectantly at Miss Collar. Mr. Lincoln won't be able to meet you, he said. He just this minute called. Just this minute, repeated Billshot. All right, just cross him off the list for Thursday night. Miss Collar handed you a line and a sheet of paper before her. Mr. Chesney, they haven't forgotten me, have you? He turned the redhead down. No, he said vaguely, and then Miss Collar. That's all right, ask him for Thursday anyhow. Well, then. He didn't want to lunch alone. He didn't like to do anything alone now. His contracts were too much fun when one had prominence and power. His contacts were too much fun when one had prominence and power. If you just let me talk to you 2 minutes, she began. Afraid I can't now. Suddenly he realised that she was the most beautiful person he'd ever seen in his life. He stared at her. Mr. Rogers told her, "Go and have a spot of lunch with me then," he said. And then with an air of great hurry, he gave Miss Caroline some quick and contradictory instructions, and now opened the door. They stood on 42nd Street, and he breathed his preempt air. There's only air there for a few people at a time. It was November, and the first exhilarating rush of the season was over. He could look east and see the electric sign on one of his plays, and west and see another. Around the corner was the one he had put on with Brankuski, last time he would produce anything except a loan. They went to the Bedford, where there was 2 waiters and captains, and as he came in. "This is a very attractive restaurant," she said, fresh and uncomfortable behaviour. "It's Sam's Paradise," he nodded to several people. "Hello, Jimmy, Bill. Hello there, Jack." That's Jack Dempsey. "Don't eat here much. I usually eat up the Harvard Club." "Oh, did you go to Harvard?" "I used to know." "Yes." He hesitated. There were 2 versions about Harvard, and he decided suddenly on the true one. "Yes, and they had me down for an nick there, but not anymore. About a week ago, we were out on Long Island with Governor Earaches, very fashionable people. A couple of Gold Coast boys that never knew I was still alive up in Cambridge began pulling this 'hello, Bill, old boy' on me." He hesitated, suddenly decided to leave the story there. "What do you want, a job?" he demanded. I remembered suddenly that she had holes in her stockings. Holes in stockings always moved and softened. "Yes, sir, I've got to go home," she said. "I want to be a dancer, Russian ballet. The lessons cost so much, so I've got to get a job. I thought they'd give me stage presence anyway." "Oofra, huh?" "Oh, no, serious." "Well, Pavlov's an oofra, isn't she?" "Oh, no, she was shocked. She was shocked at this, apparently." After a moment, she continued, "I took with Miss Campbell, Georgia Berryman Campbell, back home. Maybe you know her? She took from New Wayburn. She's really wonderful. Yeah," he said. "It's a tough business. Casting agencies bursting with people who can do anything. Don't give it a try." "How old are you?" 18. "I'm 26. Came here 4 years ago without a cent." "My. I'm quit now and become for the rest of my life." "My. I take a year off next year, get married. Ever heard of Irene Riker? I should say she's about my favourite of all. Engaged." "My." When they went out of Times Square after a while, he said carelessly, "What are you doing now?" "I'm trying to get a job." "Why right this minute?" "Why, nothing. You want to come up to my apartment on 46th Street and have some coffee?" Their eyes met, and Emmy Pinkard made up her mind she could take care of herself. It was a great bright studio apartment with a 10-foot divan, and after she had coffee, now yet highball, his arm dropped around her shoulder. "Why should I kiss you?" she demanded. "I hardly know you, and besides, you're engaged to somebody else." That she don't care." "No, really. You're a good girl." "I'm certainly not an idiot." "All right, go on being a good girl." She stood up and lingered a minute, very fresh and cool, and not upset at all. "I suppose this means you won't give me a job?" she asked pleasantly. "You're already thinking about something else, about an interview and a rehearsal." Harry looked at her again and saw that she still had holes in her stockings. He telephoned. "Joe, this is the fresh boy. You didn't think I knew you'd call me that, did you? It's all right. So you got those 3 girls for the party, see? Well, listen, save one for a southern kid. I'm sending them round today." He looked at her jauntily, conscious of being such a good fellow. "Well, I don't know to thank you, Mr. Rogers," he added audaciously. "Goodbye, Mr. McChesney." That's the end of part 1. That's odd. I don't really know what to make of that. We're, right, I suppose. Went from rude unknown to rude young unknown to 26. Look, he's quite young to be acting like that. To invite her to lunch, to trying to make a move on her, to giving her a job. That. It was odd, really. It doesn't feel like it makes any sense, but not in like a, how'd you say? Like, it makes a certain amount of sense in like a real world way. Like I can imagine this actually happening, but in a book it feels weird. The whole thing feels sort of disjointed. Like there's not like a narrative logic to it. You know what I mean? It doesn't really feel like it flows from one to another. This is just the start. We'll see. During rehearsal, he used to come around a great deal and stand watching with a wise expression, as if he knew everything in people's minds. But actually, he was in a haze about his own good fortune. Didn't see much and didn't for the moment care. He spent most of his weekends on Long Island with fashionable people who had taken him up, and Brancusi referred to him as the big society, the big social butterfly. He would answer, "Well, what about it? Didn't I go to Harvard? Didn't they found me in Grand Street Applecart like you?" He was well liked among his new friends for his good looks and good nature, as well as his success. His engagement to Irene Riker was the most unsatisfactory thing in his life. They were tired of each other, but unwilling to put an end to it. Just as often, the two richest young people in the town are drawn together by the fact that Bill McChesney and Irene Riker, born side by side on waves of triumph, could not spare each other's nice appreciation of what was due such success. Nevertheless, they indulged in fiercer and more frequent quarrels, and the end were approaching. They were embodied in one Frank Llewellyn, a big, fine-looking actor playing opposite Irene. Seeing the situation at once, Bill became bitterly humorous about it. In the second week of rehearsals, there was tension in the air. Meanwhile, Emmy Pinkard, with enough money for crackers and milk, and a friend who took her out to dinner, was being happy. Her friend, Easton Hughes, from Delaney, was studying at Columbia to be a dentist. He sometimes brought along other lonesome young men studying to be dentists, and at the price, if it can be called that, of a few casual kisses in a taxicab, Emmy Darn went hungry. One afternoon, she introduced Easton to Bill McChesney, the stage door, and afterwards Bill made his facetious jealousy the basis of their relationship. "I see that dental number have been slipping it over on me again. I don't let him give you any laughing gas, it's my advice." Though their encounters were few, they always looked at each other. When Bill looked at her, he stared for an instant as if he had not seen her before, and then remembered suddenly that she was to be teased. When she looked at him, she saw many things. A bright day outside, with great crowds of people hurrying through the streets. A very good new limousine waited at the curb for two people with very good new clothes, and got in and went somewhere that was just like New York. Only away, and more fun there. Many times she had wished she had kissed him, just as many times she was glad she hadn't. Since as the week passed, it grew less romantic, tied up like the rest of them in the play's laborious evolution. They were opening Atlantic City. A sudden moodiness, apparent to everyone, came over Bill. He was short with the director and sarcastic with the actors. This, it were rumoured, was because Irene Riker had come down with Frank Llewellyn on a different train. Sitting beside the author on the night of the dress rehearsal, he was an almost sinister figure at the twilight of the auditorium. But he said nothing until the end of the second act, when, with Llewellyn and Irene Riker on the stage alone, he suddenly called, "I'll go over it again, cut out the mush." Llewellyn came down with the footlights. "What do you mean, cut out the mush?" he inquired. "Those are the lines, aren't they?" "You know what I mean, stick to business." "I don't know what you mean." He stood up. "I mean all that damn whispering." "I wasn't any whispering, I simply asked." "Oh, do, take it over." Llewellyn turned away furiously and were about to proceed when Bill added audibly, "Even an ham's got to do his stuff." Llewellyn whipped around. "I don't have to stand this kind of talk, Mr. McChesney." "I'm not. You're an ham, aren't you? When do you get ashamed of being an ham? I'm putting on this play and I want you to stick to your stuff." Bill got up and walked down the aisle. "When you don't do it, I'm going to call you just like anybody else." "You watch out your tone of voice. I don't like what you do about it." Llewellyn jumped down at the orchestra. "I'm not taking anything from you," he shouted. Irene Riker called them from the stage. "For heaven's sake, you two are crazy." And Llewellyn swung at him one short, mighty blow. Bill pitched back across a row of seats, fell through one splinter in it, and lay wedged there. For a moment of wild confusion, then people ordered Llewellyn, and the author, with a white face, pulling Bill up, and the stage manager cried, "Shall I kill him, Chief? Shall I break his fat face?" Llewellyn panting and Irene Riker frightened. "Get back there," Bill cried, holding the handkerchief to his face, and teetering in the author's support arms. Everybody back, get back, take the scene again and no talk. Get back, Llewellyn. Well, they realised that they were all back to the stage, Irene pulling Llewellyn's arm and taking him fast, and talking to him fast. Someone put on the auditorium lights and they dimmed them again, hurriedly. And then he came out presently for her scene. She saw in a quick glance that Bill was sitting with an old mask of handkerchiefs over his bleeding face. She hated Llewellyn and were afraid that presently they would break up and go back to New York. Bill had saved the show from his own folly, since for Llewellyn to take the further initiative of quitting would have hurt his professional standing. The act ended and the next one began without an interval. When they were over, Bill were gone. Next night, during the performance, he sat on a chair in the wings in view of everyone coming on or off. His face was swollen and bruised, but he neglected to seem conscious of the fact. There were no comments. Once he went around in front, and when he returned, word leaked out that 2 of the New York agencies were making big bargains. He had a hit. They all had a hit. The sight of him, the way Mamie felt they all owed so much, a great wave of gratitude swept over her. She went up and thanked him. "I'm a good picker, Redhead," he agreed grimly. "Thank you for picking me." And suddenly Emmy would move to a rash remark. "You hurt your face so badly," she exclaimed. "Oh, I think it was so brave of you not to let everything go to pieces last night." He looked at her for a moment, and then an ironic smile tried unsuccessfully to settle on his swollen face. "You admire me, baby?" "Yes. Even when I fell in the seat, did you admire me? You got control of everything so quick. That's loyalty for you. Found something to admire in that full mess." Her happiness bubbled up into, "Anyhow, you behaved just wonderful." She looked so fresh and young that Bill, who had a wretched day, wanted to rest his swollen cheek against her. He took both the bruises and the desire with him to New York next morning. The bruise faded, but the desire remained. When they opened in the city, no sooner did he see other men begin to crowd around her beauty. She became this play for him, his success, the thing that he came to see when he came to the theatre. After a good run, it closed just as he was drinking too much and needed someone on the grey days of recreation. They were married suddenly in Connecticut, early in June. Oh. Yeah, this whole thing does seem very abrupt. That's the end of chapter 2, I should say. Yeah. What's there to say there? I think I'll agree with her on one point, though. That was quite an impressive way to handle the thing. Obviously, he picked a fight, and he got punched, and he deserved it. But getting punched and deserving it is one thing, but knowing immediately that you have deserved what you've gotten, and then taking control of it through sort of social power, that is impressive. I respect him having the chops to go, yeah, no more of that, get back on the stage and get to work, and it working. It implies quick thinking, it also implies a degree of respect that people have for him. He might be a prick in his personal life, and he might be, sore and his fiancée might be running around on him, but he's a good director by the looks of him. You can't really argue with that. There's something to competence. Anyhow. What's going on? I've just had the last of my water. I'm going to run refill it real quick. Won't be 2 ticks. I'm not even going to put a thing on. I'm only going a little way across the library. There's a tap on one of these shelves. See, you can still hear me though, I'm distant. Now, I'm not distant anymore, I don't know why I felt the need to narrate it, but yeah. Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about that chapter anyway, so let's get back to it. 3. Sat at the Savoy Grill in London, waiting for the 4th of July. We're already late in May. Is he a nice guy? Asked Hubble. Very nice, answered Brancusi. Very nice and very handsome, very popular. After a moment he added, want to get him to come home? That's what I don't get about him, said Hubble. Show business over here is nothing compared to home. Why does he want to stay here for? He goes around with a lot of dukes and ladies. Last week when I met him, he was with 3 ladies. Lady this, lady that, lady the other thing. But he was married. Married 3 years, said Brancusi. A fine child, can't have another. He broke off as Majesty came in, his very American face staring about boldly over the collar of the box-shouldered topcoat. Hello, Mac. Meet my friend Mr. Hubble. You do, said Bill. He sat down, continuing to stare about the bar and to see who was present. After a few minutes, Hubble left, and Bill asked, who's that bird? He's only been here a month. He ain't got a title yet. You've been here 6 months, remember? Bill grinned. You think I'm high out, don't you? Well, I'm not kidding myself anyhow. I like it, I guess, to me. I like to be the Marquess of McChesney. Maybe you can drink yourself into it, suggested Brancusi. Shut your trap. Who said I was drinking? But they're saying now, look here. If you can tell me any American manager in the history of the theatre who's had the success that I've had in London in less than 8 months, I'll go back to America with you tomorrow. You just tell me. It was with your old show. It was with your old show. You had 2 flops in New York. You had 2 flops in New York. Bill stood up, his face hardened. Who do you think you are? You come over here to talk to me like that? Well, guess so now, Bill. I just want you to come back. I'll say anything for that. But over 3 seasons like you had in 22 and 23, and you're fixed for life. You know what makes me sick? I said moodily. 1 minute you're king, then you have 2 flops to go around you saying you're under the toboggan. Brancusi shook his head. That wasn't why they said it. It was because you had that quarrel with Aaron Stale, your best friend. Friend, hell, your best friend in business, anyhow. Then, I don't want to talk about it. Look here, Emmy's feeling bad, so I'm afraid I can't have dinner with you tonight. Come round the office before you sail. 5 minutes later, standing by the cigar counter, Brancusi saw Bill enter the Savoy again and descended the steps that led to the tea room. You're going to be a great diplomat, thought Brancusi. He used to just say when he had a debt. He used to just say when he had a debt. Down with these dukes and ladies and polishing them up even more. Perhaps you were a little hurt, though we were not typical of him to be hurt. At any rate, he made a decision, then and there, that McChesney were on the downgrade. Quite typical of him at that point, and he erased it from his mind forever. No, no, outward indication that Bill were on the downgrade. He hit at the New Strand, a hit at the Prince of Wales, and the weekly grosses pouring enormous as well as they had 2 or 3 years before in New York. Certainly a man of action would justify them changing his base. And the man who, in an hour later, turned into Hyde Park House for dinner had all the vitality of the late 20s. Emmy, very tired and clumsy, lay out on a couch in the upstairs sitting room. He held her for a moment in his arms. Almost over now, he said. You're beautiful. Don't be ridiculous. It's true. You're always beautiful. I don't know why. That's because you've got character. That's always in your face, even when you're like this. So you were pleased. He ran around through his hair. Character is the greatest thing in the world. Oh, sorry. Character is the greatest thing in the world, he declared. You got more than anybody I know. You see, Brancusi? I did, the little lass. I decided not to bring him home to dinner. What's the matter? Oh, just snooty. Talking about my row with her and Aaron Stale as if it were my fault. She hesitated, closed her mouth tight, and then said quietly, You had that fight with Aaron Stale because you were drinking. He rose impatiently. Are you going to start? No, Bill. You're drinking too much now. You know you are. Whether she was right, he evaded the matter, and they went to dinner. In the glow of a bottle of claret, he decided he would go on the wagon tomorrow until after the baby was born. I always stop when I want it, don't I? Always do what I say. You never saw me quite yet, but yet. Never yet. Had coffee together, and afterwards he gone. Come back early, said Emmy. Oh, sure. What's the matter, baby? I'm just crying, don't mind me. Oh, go on, just don't stand there like a big idiot. I'm worried, naturally. I don't like to see you cry. Well, I don't know where you go in the evening. I don't know who you're with. That lady's civil cabinet can be phoning her all night. I suppose, but I wake up in the night and feel so alone, Bill. We've been together, haven't we, until recently? We're together still? What's happened to you and me? I know, I'm just crazy. We'd never let each other down, would we? We never, of course not. Come back earlier when you can. I looked in for a minute at the Prince of Wales Theatre. They went to the hotel next door and called a number. I'd like to speak to her ladyship. Mr. McChesney called her. For some time before Lady Sybil answered. This is rather a surprise. It's been several weeks since I've been lucky enough to hear from you. The voice were flip as a whip and cold as an automatic refrigeration, and the mode grown familiar since British ladies could piece themselves together out of literature. He'd been fascinated Bill for a while, just for a while. He kept his head. I haven't had a minute, he explained easily. You're not sore, are you? I could scarcely say sore. I was afraid you might be. You didn't send me an invitation to your party or not. My idea was that after we talked it all over, we agreed we talked a great deal, possibly a little too much. Suddenly, to Bill's astonishment, she harped. Don't British on me, he thought. A little skit entitled The Daughter of a Thousand Arms. He snubbed round him. Indifference revived his waning interest. Usually women forgave him at his change of heart because of his obvious devotion to Emmy. And they were remembered by various ladies with a not unpleasant sigh. He had detected no such sigh upon the phone. I'd like to clear up this mess, he thought. He'd been wearing evening clothes. Had he been wearing evening clothes, he might have dropped in at the dance and talked over with her. He didn't want to go home. Upon consideration, it seemed important that the misunderstanding should be fixed up at once, and presently he began to entertain the idea of going as he was. Americans were excused on conventionalities of dress. In any case, not nearly time. In the company of several highballs, he considered the matter for an hour. At midnight, he walked up the steps of the Mayfair house. The coat-room attendant scrutinised his tweed, sniffed disapprovingly, and a footman peered in vain for his name on the list of guests. Fortunately, his friend, Sir Humphrey Dunn, arrived at the same time and convinced the footman it must be a mistake. Inside, Bill immediately looked about for his hostess. She was a very tall young woman, half American and all the more intensely English. In a sense, she discovered Bill McChesney. Vouched for his savage charm. His retirement was one of her most humiliating experiences since she had begun being bad. She stood with her husband at the end of the receiving line. We had never seen them together before. He decided to choose a less formal moment for presenting himself. As the receiving went on interminably, it became increasingly uncomfortable. He saw a few people he knew, but not many. They were very conscious that his clothes were attracting a certain attention. You were aware also that Lady Sybil saw him and could have relieved his embarrassment with a wave of her hand. But she made no sign. He was sorry he had come, but to withdraw now would be absurd. And going to a buffet table, he took a glass of champagne. When he turned around, she was alone at last, and he were about to approach when the butler spoke to him. "Pardon me, sir, have a car?" "My friend, the Lady Sybil's," said Bill impatiently. He turned away, but the butler followed. "I'm sorry, sir, but I have to ask you to step aside with me and straighten this up." "There's no need, I'm just about to speak to Lady Sybil now." "My orders are different, sir," said the butler firmly. Then, before Bill realised what was happening, his arms were pressed quietly to his side and he was propelled into a little anteroom at the back of the buffet. There he faced a man in pince-nez in whom he recognised the Combrinix private secretary. "Oh! Oh! Thank you very much, Havris Hunter. Appreciate it. Welcome to the channel." Hey, yeah, how you getting on? You following along alright? You want me to go back a bit? You catch up? Ah, fair enough. Well, do appreciate you dropping by. Glad to have you. Yeah. Yeah. What am I saying? That's good. Yeah. Glad to see you. Yeah, glad to see you. I'm doing very well, yeah. What are we doing? Yeah. Where were we? Oh, yes. Yeah. So there he faced a man in pince-nez in whom he recognised the Combrinix private secretary. The secretary nodded to the butler, saying, "This man is aware. This is the man, whereupon Bill will release." "Mr. McChesney," said the secretary, "you seem to the force your way in here without a card. His lordship requests that you leave his house at once. Will you kindly give me the cheque for your coat?" Campbell understood, and a single word that he found applicable to Lady Sybil sprang to his lips. Whereupon the secretary gave a sign of two footmen, and in a furious struggle Bill was carried through a pantry. A busy busboy stared at the scene, down a long hall, and pushed out the door into the night. The door closed. A moment later it were opened again, his coat billowed forth, and his cane clattered down the steps. As he stood there overwhelmed, stricken aghast, the taxicab stopped beside him, and the driver called, "Bill Nell, governor." "What?" "I know where you can get a good pick-me-up, governor. Now, too late." The door of the taxi opened on a nightmare. There were a cabaret that broke in the closing hours. They were being with strangers he had picked up somewhere. Then there were arguments and trying to cash a cheque, and suddenly proclaiming over and over that he was William McChesney, the producer, and convincing no one of the fact, not even himself. It seemed important to see Lady Sybil right away and call her to account, but presently nothing were important at all. He were in a taxicab whose driver had just shaken him awake in front of his own home. The telephone were ringing as he went in, but he walked stonily past the maid and only heard her voice when his foot were on the stair. "Mr. McChesney, it's the hospital calling again. Mrs. McChesney's there, and they've been phoning every hour." Still in the daze, he held the receiver up to his ear. "We're calling from the Midland Hospital for your wife. She was delivered of a stillborn child at 9 this morning." "Wait a minute." His voice was drowning. "I don't understand." After a while, he understood that Emmy's child was dead, and she wanted him. His knees sagged groggily as he walked down the street for a taxi. The room was dark. Amy looked up and saw him from a rumpled bed. "It's you," she cried. "I thought you were dead. Where'd you go?" He threw himself down on his knees beside the bed. She turned away. "Oh, you smell awful," she said. "It makes me sick." She kept her hand in his hair, and he knelt there motionless for a long time. "I'm done with you," she muttered. "It was awful when I thought you were dead. Everybody's dead. I wish I were dead." The curtain parted with the wind, and as he rose to arrange it, she saw him in the full morning light, pale and terrible, with rumpled clothes and bruises on his face. This time she hated him instead of those who had hurt him. She could feel him slipping out of her heart, through the space he left, and all at once he was gone. But she couldn't even forgive him and be sorry for him, all in less than a minute. She had fallen down at the door of the hospital, trying to get out of the taxi cab alone. That's the end of chapter 3. Yeah. That's a turn off, Jesus. I said I thought this one might be grim by the name, but I may have underestimated it. I'm trying to think what there is to say about this. I mean, pretty obviously, it is a pretty significant downfall for this character. I mean, it seems like it started before we started, with his falling out with his business partner over in New York. But, yeah, it really seems like it went from all the way down to rock bottom in the space of about an evening. Jesus, though. Grim indeed. Terrible thing like that happened. Terrible thing like that. Still. Sucks for him, but I'm doing good. So, can't be too down, can we? Right. When Emma were physically well and mentally, her incessant idea was to learn to dance. The old dream encapsulated by Miss Georgia Burham Campbell, South Carolina, persisted. As a bright avenue leading back to the first youthful days of hope in New York. To her, dancing meant that elaborate blend of tortuous attitudes and formal pirouettes that evolved out of it at least several hundred years ago, and reached its apogee in Russia at the beginning of this century. She wanted to use herself on something she could believe in, and it seemed to her that this dance was a woman's interpretation of music. Instead of strong fingers, one had limbs with which to render Tchaikovsky and Stravinsky, and feet could be as eloquent in Chopiniana as voices in the ring. At the bottom, it was something sandwiched in between the acrobats and the trained seamers. At the top, it was Pavlova and art. Once they were settled in an apartment back in New York, she plunged into her work like a girl of 16. 4 hours a day at bar exercises, attitudes, sorts, arabesques, and pirouettes. It became the realest part of her life, and her only worry was whether or not she were too old. At 26, she had 10 years to make up, but she were a natural dancer with a fine body and a lovely face. Phil encouraged it. When she were ready, you were going to build the first real American ballet around her. There were even times when he envied her absorption. Her affairs in his own line were more difficult since they had come home. For one thing, he had made enemies in those early days of self-confidence. They were exaggerated stories of his drinking and his being hard on actors and difficult to work with. They were against him that he had always been unable to save money and must beg a backing for each play. Then, too, in curious ways, he were intelligent, as he were brave enough to prove it in several uncommercial ventures. He had no theatre guild behind him, and what money he lost were charges against him. There were successes too. He worked hardest for them, or it seemed so. He began to pay a price for his irregular life. He always intended to take a rest or give up his incessant cigarettes. There was so much competition now, new men coming up with new reputations for infallibility, and besides, he wasn't used to regularity. He liked to do his work in those great spurts, inspired by black coffee that seemed so inevitable in show business, which took so much for the man after 30. He'd come to the lean in a way on Emmy's fine health and vitality. They were always together, and if he felt a vague dissatisfaction that he'd grown to need her more than she needed him, they were always the hope that things would break better for him next month, next season. Coming home from ballet school one November evening, Emmy swung her little grey bag, pulled her hat far down over her still damp hair, and gave herself up to pleasant speculation. For a month she'd been aware of people who had come to the studio especially to watch her. She was ready to dance. Once she worked just as hard, just as long on something else, a relation with Bill, and they reached a climax in misery. But here there were nothing to fail her except herself. Even now she felt a little rational, thinking, now it's come, I'm going to be happy. She hurried for something to come up there today that she must talk over with Bill. Finding them in the living room, she called him to come back while she dressed. She began to talk without looking around. Listen what happened. Her voice was loud, complete with the water running in the tub. Paul McCover wants me to dance with him at the Metropolitan this season. And it's not sure, so it's a secret. Even I'm not supposed to know. That's great. The only thing is whether it wouldn't be better for me to make a debut abroad. Anyhow, Donald says I'm ready to appear. What do you think? I don't know. That sounds very enthusiastic. I've got something on my mind. I'll tell you about it later. Go on. That's all, dear. If you still feel like going to Germany for a month, like you said, Donald would arrange a debut for me in Berlin. I'd rather open here and dance with Paul McCover. Just imagine. She broke off, feeling suddenly through the thick skin of her relation how distracted it was. Tell me what you got on your mind. I went to Dr. Kernes this afternoon. What did he say? Mum was still singing with her own happiness. Bill was in intermittent attacks of hypochondria had long ceased to worry. I told him about the blood this morning, and he said what he said last year. Probably a little broken vein in my throat. And since I've been coughing and worrying, perhaps it was safe to take an x-ray and clear the matter up. Oh, it cleared it up all right. My left lung is practically gone. Bill! Luckily there are no spots on the other. She waited, horribly afraid. It's come at a bad time for me, went on still. It's got to be faced. I think so I'll go to Adirondack to Denver for the winter. His idea is Denver. The way it will probably clear up in 5 or 6 months. Of course we'll have to. She stopped suddenly. I wouldn't expect you to go, especially if you have this opportunity. Of course I'll go, she said. Your health comes first. You can't always go everywhere. No. But yes, of course. She made her voice strong and decisive. We've always been together. I couldn't stay here without you. When do you have to go? As soon as possible. I didn't see Brankuski to find out if he wanted to take over the Richmond piece. He didn't seem enthusiastic. Face up. Of course there won't be anything else for the present. I'll have to, and I'll have enough for what's owing. Oh, if I was only making some money, I worked so hard, and here I've been spending $200 a week just on my dancing lessons alone. I'll be able to work for years. Of course, in 6 months I'll be well as ever, he says. Sure, dearest. Will you get well? We'll start as soon as we can. Put an arm around him and kissed him. Just an old parasite, she said. I should have known my dancing wasn't well. He reached automatically for a cigarette and then stopped. I forgot. I've got to stop cutting down the smoking. He rose to the occasion suddenly. No, baby, I decided to go alone. You go crazy with boredom out there. I'll be just be thinking I'm keeping you away from your dancing. Don't think about that. Things to get you well. They discussed the matter hour after hour for the next week, each of them saying everything except the truth. He wanted her to go with him, and she wanted passionately to stay in New York. He talked it over gradually with Doniloff, the ballet master, and found that he thought any postponement would be a terrible mistake. She and other girls in the ballet school making plans for the winter. She wanted to die rather than go, and Bill saw all the involuntary indications of her misery. For a while they talked of compromising in the Adirondacks, whether she would commute by aeroplane for the weekend. He was running his little fever now, and he was definitely ordered west. Bill said it all one gloomy Sunday night. Rough, generous justice first made her admire him. It made him rather tragic in his adversity, as he had always been bearable in his overweening success. It's just up to me, baby. I got into this mess because I didn't have any self-control. I seem to have all that in this family, and now it's only me that can get me out of it. You've worked hard at your stuff for 3 years, and you deserve your chance. If you came out there now, you'd have to sit. You'd have it on me the rest of my life. He grinned, and I couldn't stand that. Besides, it wouldn't be good for the kid. Eventually she gave in, ashamed of herself, miserable and glad. For the world of her work, where she existed without Bill, was bigger to her now than the world in which they existed together. There was more room to be glad in one than to be sorry in the other. A few days later, with his ticket bought that afternoon at 5, they passed the last hours together, talking of everything hopeful. She protested still and sincerely. Had he weakened for a moment, she would have gone. The shock had done something to him, and he showed more character under it than he had for years. Perhaps it would be good for him to work it out alone. In the spring, they said. In the station, with little Billy and Bill saying, I hate these graveside partners. You leave me here, I've got to make a phone call from the train before it goes. They never spent more than a night apart in 6 years, save for an enemy in the hospital. Save for the time in England, they had a good record of faithfulness and tenderness towards each other. even though she had been alarmed and often unhappy at the insecure bravado from the first. After he went through the gate, and we were glad he had a phone call to make, and tried to picture him making it. She was a good woman. She loved him with all her heart. When she went out in the 33rd Street, it was just as dead. He was just as dead for a while. And the apartment he paid for would be empty of him. She was real, about to do something that would make her happy. She stopped after a few blocks, thinking, "Oh, this is terrible what I'm doing. I'm living in town with the worst person I ever heard of. I'm living in flat, going off to dinner with Donald and Paul Marcola. I like being beautiful and having the same colour eyes and hair. Bill's on the train alone." She swung little Billy around suddenly as if to go back to the station. She could see him sitting in the train, with his face so pale and tired, and no aim. "I can't let him down," she cried to herself as a wave after wave of sentiment washed over her. But only sentiment. Hadn't he let her down? He had done what he wanted in London. Oh, poor Bill. She stood irresolute, realising for the last honest moment how quickly she would forget this and find excuses for what she was doing. She had to think hard on London, and her conscience cleared. With Bill all alone in the train, it seemed terrible to think that way. Even now she could turn and go back to the station, and tell him that she was coming. But she still waited. The life very strong in her, fighting for her. The sidewalk was narrow where she stood. Presently a great wave of people, pouring out of the theatre, came flooding along it, and she and little Billy were swept along with the crowd. In the train, Bill telephoned up at the last minute, postponed going back to his stateroom, because he knew it was almost certain that he would not find her there. After the train started, he went back, and of course, there were nothing but his bag in the rack and some magazines on the seat. He knew then that he had lost her. He saw the step up without any illusions, this Paul Markova, months of proximity and loneliness. Afterwards, nothing would ever be the same. When he thought about it all a long time, reading variety and zits in between, it began to seem each time he came back to it, as though Amy somehow were dead. She was a fine girl, one of the best. She had character. He realised perfectly that he had brought all this on himself. There was some law of compensation involved. He saw too that by going away, he had again become as good as she was. They were all evened up as last. He felt beyond everything, even beyond this brief and almost comfortable sensation of being in the hands of something bigger than himself. And grown a little tired and unconfident, two qualities he could never for a moment tolerate, it did not seem so terrible if he were going west for a definite finish. He was sure that Emmy would come at the end, no matter what she was doing or how good an engagement she had. Damn, double down all that, eh? Grimness after grimness, huh? That's an odd one, there. There's something to it, the sort of, how'd you say? The symmetry, maybe? Maybe karma is the way to say it, really. But, yeah. He fails her and she fails him. I'm not exactly sure about that last line. I don't know if maybe or whether he's undersold quite how bad his disease is. It might just be that he's got bad odds, because I'm pretty sure he has lung cancer, which, you know, isn't a great survivable thing, but the way it sounds, it makes it sound like he's definitely a goner and he knows it. Which, well, makes a very different portrait of it. It's strange, really. I don't know how to feel about him. Like I said after the first chapter, there's something admirable to the man. The way he sort of snaps and controls things. And in the end there's something admirable about him too. In the, what do you call it? In his... Not after the first chapter, after the second chapter. There's something admirable in his choices. In letting her be her own person. Even though he very badly wants her. In recognising that in his failing her, he has no right to ask her not to fail him. It's a strange thing, is it? I'm trying to think what else I can say about it, really. It's odd, because it's a story about the two of them, really. But it's more a story about him, I think. Mostly because of the third chapter, because she's not really in that part. Well, I guess she's more in the fourth chapter than he is. I don't know. It's odd. I think I want to dwell on him because I think his is the more interesting perspective in the last chapter. But it is a story of two people. She coming up from nothing and becoming this dancer, and he coming from the top and falling down into decay and death. It's odd. As much as he fails her in the third chapter, much as he... I don't know if you can really say he's to blame for what happened. Like, it was a terrible accident, and it's certainly implied that if he'd been there it wouldn't have happened, but it was an accident. And while he was off making a tit of himself, he didn't cause it or anything, but you can't really forgive someone for something like that, even if it is an accident, I suppose. I don't know. It's another one where it's not as much a case as in the first one, but no one does anything like unforgivably wrong here, really. He's a bit of an arrogant prick, and she chooses herself over him, but neither of them like make any egregious mistakes or do anything horrible. And yet both of them wind up in a bad way all the same. I wonder if that's a running theme of Fitzgerald. Like, both of them have their like notables. I don't know. I'm trying to think. But like the worst thing this man did, really, in my mind, is in the first chapter when he tries to time his fiancée with her. Which is, you know, I mean, it's distinctly, how do you put it? Distinctly wrong of him to do that, but he also doesn't push it, and once you brush him up, he's in pretty good humour and gets her a job. I don't know. I think that's the thing I'm struggling with both of these. I like these two. Neither of them's a bad person. Both of them suffer their own fair share of tragedy. And for all that he's a bit of an arrogant prick, he's, you know, seemingly good at what he does, and he cares about people. I don't know. I think I'm at odds as well because I guess because she ends on a good note and he ends on a bad one. But maybe that's not fair because she also goes through like a much more harrowing. Well, no, does she? I don't know. I don't think I'm really well equipped to comment on it because I couldn't have children. I don't really want them. But, you know, not like proper intelligent children. I might have some rat kids running around, but they're just rats. Which, let's not dwell on that. That's a mildly upsetting thought. Moderately upsetting. Quite severely upsetting. Let's not dwell on that. But I could never have a kid, so I can't really, you know, wrap my head around that. So I don't know how it would compare with finding out that you were dying of lung cancer, which I can theoretically at least get behind it. I think they're both pretty grim. But the way he ends it, it feels like he's consigning himself to death, whereas she comes back from her terrible moment. So I want to be more sympathetic for him. At the same time, she's not done anything wrong. In fact, basically at all, really. She actually, that's maybe more of a thing. She doesn't have any. Well, no, I guess actually choosing to like choose to prioritise herself is her sort of sin in this, but I don't really blame her for it. I don't know. It feels strange. Like it feels like there should be some sort of. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Both of them hurt each other so badly. That's what it is. That's what I'm struggling with. Both of them hurt each other so badly that it feels like you should dislike one or both of them, right? They both do each other such terrible, sort of unforgivable injuries in their actions. But neither of them do anything that you hate them for, right? They're both likeable people. I think well of both of them. The things that they do to hurt each other aren't things that are done out of malice. They're things that are done, I mean, in his case, out of sort of bull-headed ignorance, maybe some misplaced, like, last-minute youth, and her out of desire to improve and become herself. I think part of it is also that they're just, I think both of them are younger, or well, they're not younger than me, because I'm a rat and I'm like 4 years old, but I'm also like, I guess I feel like I'm a 4. Like, how old do rats normally live to? Okay, so apparently rats normally live to about 4 years old. So now I'm freaking out about my own imminent mortality, which is fun. I don't feel old like I'm going to die, but I am, by all intents and purposes, as a rat, an adult. Whereas there, he was 26 at the start and she was 18, and then at the end she's 26. So I guess he would be 34 by the end. Which, yeah, that's an adult, like proper. But at the start, he's basically still a kid as well. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. I guess 26 is old enough to be like a man, but it's still a young man. I think I'm sympathetic to it. Neither of them makes choices to hurt one another. Neither of them do things wrong because they want to do wrong, because they're trying to... Actually, I was about to say because they're trying to get one over on the other one, get ahead. But I guess she is trying to get ahead. It's not like a cruel putting people down to get ahead way. It's she's worked for her dream, which was the dream she started with. In fact, the very first thing she told him was that she wanted to do it. They came into all of this honestly. They were just themselves, and they hurt each other incidentally by the being of themselves. And that's the tragic part. Neither of them's wicked, neither of them's cruel, they're just human. But by being human, by being their authentic selves, they badly hurt one another. I'm not sure I like this one, but I think it's good. I think it's very good. I think I'm talking about it so much. There's something to it. I am struggling to put a finger on exactly what, but I think that's it. I think it is just the nature of how two people living their lives can do each other such terrible injury, and yet do no wrong at the same time. All the world's cruelty coming about by circumstance and mishap. That's very bleak, Jesus. And the worst part is after it's an happy ending, really, although we don't dwell on the happy part of it. By all intents and seeming, she's going to go on and make a great career in ballet and live out her dream. You sort of focus on your man because he's dying. His is the last line, but yeah. That's a strange story. I think it's very good too. I've got to rate that one. I've read... How many books have I read by now? I know I've got about 50 around the library, but 10 of them is... or 11 of them is Jack London's. I'm holding off or something. I'm going to announce that or something. I've got to get around to figuring out the detail. Yeah, those were... I think that is one of the better ones we've read. I'll put it up there near the top. It's been a couple of days for good ones. Like the Orwell I didn't enjoy much because it was quite bleak I found, but it was good. The Runyons I really enjoyed. And then Babylon was, I mean, even Return of Babylon was good, but that was, man, 2 wrongs. God, it's in the title too. God, 2 wrongs. They do wrongs to one another. I've done this, that. Jesus is staring me in the face. 2 wrongs don't make a right. Each of them does wrong things to each other. I mean, I guess it sort of, I don't know, because it does seem to make a right for her, doesn't it? Well, maybe it does. Maybe that's the point. That's why the last line's there. He's gonna die. He's gonna die off in Aspen or wherever, and that's gonna destroy her. Like he said, she'll come down for the future. Jesus Christ, Fitzgerald, that's messed up. No, I'm wrong. It's not an happy ending for her. She's going to go off and do the ballet, and for a season she's going to be living on top of the world, and happy as Larry, and get her engagement with whatever his name was, the Russian. And then she's going to come down for his funeral because he's going to be dying of lung cancer, and it will ruin her for the rest of her life. Jesus, you can see the future spread out like an horrible tableau. That's bastardly. No, I think I've decided I don't like this book, and also that it is maybe one of the best ones we've read. Christ. Where? Don't play Mr. Fitzgerald, God. I feel like I should be judging you more for that, but I do appreciate a good bit of bastardry being around. And you looking like a square and all. Well, let me have my drink of water and calm down. let's move on to something that I've been looking forward to, shall we? Decay, the Art of Lying. On the Decay of the Art of Lying, I should say. By Mark Twain. Now let's have a look at this. I think I called this a short story on the Burp website. I think it might be like an essay rather than a short story. Sort of non-fiction thing. But Lamp said that Mark Twain mostly does fiction stuff, so I didn't think about putting it with the other non-fiction. We don't have a lot of non-fiction. I don't really know why. Lamp is quite judgmental on most of them. There's a couple of books that I've got an eye on, or sections that I've got an eye on. I think might have some more, but I think most of what we're going to be reading for this near future is fiction. So here we are. Now, On the Decay of the Art of Lying. Ooh, there's a little forward here by the editor. This short story made its debut in The Stolen White Elephant, etc., published by James R. Osgood and Company, Boston, in 1882. A little bit of historical context, that's neat. Essay for discussion, read at a meeting of the Historical and Antiquarian Club of Hartford, and offered for the $30 prize, now first published. Observe, I do not mean to suggest customer lying has suffered any decay or interruption. No, for the lie is a virtue, a principle is eternal. The lie is a recreation of solace, a refuge in time and need. The fourth grace, the 10th muse, man's best and surest friend, is immortal, cannot perish from the earth, while this club remains. My complaint simply concerns the decay of the art of lying. No high-minded man, no man of right feeling, can contemplate the lumbering and slovenly lying of the present day without grieving to see a noble art so prostituted. In this veteran presence, I naturally enter upon this theme with diffidence. It is like an old maid trying to teach a nursery matters to the mothers in Israel. It would not become me to criticise you, gentlemen, who are nearly all my elders and my superiors in this thing. And so, if I should here and there seem to do it, I trust it will in most cases be more in a spirit of admiration than fault. Indeed, in this finest of the fine arts, and everywhere received the attention, encouragement, and conscientious practice and development which this club is devoted to it, I should not need to utter the lament, or shed a single tear. I do not say this to flatter, I say in the spirit of just and appreciative recognition. Oh, there's a little note at the bottom of this. Apparently it did not take the $30 price. I say in a spirit of just and appreciative recognition. It had been my intention at this point to mention names and give illustrative specimens. Indications observable about me admonish me to be aware of particulars and confine myself to generalities. No fact is more firmly established than that lying is a necessity of our circumstance. The deduction that it is then a virtue goes without saying. No virtue can reach its highest usefulness without careful and diligent cultivation. Therefore, it goes without saying that this one ought to be taught in the public schools, the fireside, even the newspapers. What chance has the ignorant, uncultivated liar against the educated expert? What chance have I against the lawyer? Judicious lying is what the world needs. I sometimes think it were even better and safer not to lie, lie injudiciously. An awkward, unscientific lie is often as ineffectual as the truth. I was right, I do like this. Now let's see what the philosophers say. Note the venerable proverb, children and fools always speak the truth. The deduction is plain. Adults, unwise persons, never speak it. Parkman, the historian, says, the principle of truth may itself be carried into an absurdity. In another place, in the same chapter, he says, the saying is old, that truth should not be spoken at all times, and those whom a sick conscience worries into habitual violation of the maxim are imbeciles and nuisances. It's strong language, but true. None of us could live with an habitual truth teller. Thank goodness none of us here has to. An habitual truth teller is simply an impossible creature. He does not exist. He never has existed. Of course, there are people who think they never lie, but it is not so, and this ignorance is one of the very things that shame our so-called civilization. Everybody lies, every day, every hour, awake, asleep, in his dreams, in his joy, in his mourning. If he keeps his tongue still, his hands, his feet, his eyes, his attitude will convey deception, and purposely, even in sermons. That's a platitude. In a far country where I once lived, the ladies used to go around paying calls under the humane and kindly pretense of wanting to see each other, and when they returned home they would cry out with a glad voice saying, "We made 16 calls and found 14 of them out." Not meaning they had found anything against the 14, now that were only a colloquial phrase to signify they were not at home, and their manner of saying it expressed their lively satisfaction in that fact. Now their presence of wanting to see the 14, now their pretense of wanting to see the 14, and the other two to whom they had been less lucky with, was that commonest and mildest form of lying which is sufficiently described as a deflection from the truth. Is it justifiable? Well, certainly. It is beautiful, it is noble, for its object is not to reap profit, but to convey a pleasure to the 16. The iron-souled truth-monger would plainly manifest, or even utter the fact that he didn't want to see these people, and he would be an ass, and inflict a totally unnecessary pain. And next, those ladies in that far country, but never mind, they had 1,000 pleasant ways of lying, and grew out of gentle impulses, and were a credit to their intelligence and an honour to their hearts. Let the particulars go. The men in that far country were liars, every one. Their mere howdy-do were a lie, because they didn't care how you did, except they were undertakers. The ordinary inquirer, you lied in return, for you made no conscientious diagnosis of the case, but answered at random and usually missed it considerably. You lied to the undertaker and said your health were failing, a wholly commendable lie, since it cost you nothing and it pleased the other man. If a stranger called in interrupted you, you said with your hearty tongue, "I'm glad to see you." And you said with your hearty soul, "I wish you were," and you said with your heartier soul, "I wish you were the cannibals and it were dinner time." When he went, you said regretfully, "Must you go?" and followed with "Call again." But you did no harm, for you did not deceive anybody or inflict any hurt, whereas the truth would have made you both unhappy. I think that all this courteous lying is a sweet and loving art, and should be cultivated. The highest perfection of politeness is only a beautiful edifice built from the base of the dome, graceful and gilded forms of charitable and unselfish lying. What I bemoan is the growing prevalence of the brutal truth. Let's do what we can to eradicate it. An injurious truth has no merit over an injurious lie. Neither should ever be uttered. The man who speaks an injurious truth, lest his soul not be saved, if you do otherwise, should reflect that the sort of soul is not strictly worth saving. The man who tells a lie to help a poor devil out of trouble is one of whom the angels doubtless say, "Lo, there is an heroic soul who casts his one welfare into jeopardy to succour his neighbours. Let us exalt this magnanimous liar." An injurious lie is as uncommendable a thing, and is as Sorry, I'm getting excited because I'm enjoying this too much, and it's meant my tongue slow. An injurious lie is an uncommendable thing, and so also is in the same degree as an injurious truth, a fact which is recognised by the law of libel. Among other common lies, we have the silent lie, the deception which one conveys by simply keeping still and concealing the truth. Many obstinate truthmongers indulge in this dispassion. Imagine that if they speak no lie, they lie not at all. In that far country where I once lived, there were a lovely spirit, a lady whose impulses were always high and pure, whose character answered to them. One day I was there at dinner and remarked, in a general way, that we were all liars. She was amazed, and said, "Not all." It was before Pinafore's time, so I did not make the response which would naturally follow in our day, but frankly said, "Yes, all. We are all liars. There are no exceptions." She looked almost offended, and said, "Why do you include me?" "Certainly," I said. I think you even rank as an expert." She said, "Shh, the children." The subject would change in deference to the children's presence. We went on talking about other things. As soon as the young people were out of the way, the lady came warmly back to the matter and said, "I have made it the rule of my life never to tell a lie. I have never departed from it in a single instance." I said, "I don't mean in the least harm with disrespect, but really you've been lying like smoke ever since I've been sitting there. It's caused me a good deal of pain, because I'm not used to it." She required of me an instance, just a single instance, so I said, "Well, here is the young duplicate of the blank, which the Oakland hospital people sent to you by the hand of the sick nurse when she came in here to nurse your little nephew through his dangerous illness. This blank asked all manner of questions as to the conduct of that sick nurse. Did she ever sleep on her watch? Did she ever forget to give the medicine? So forth and so on. You are warned to be very careful and explicit in your answers, for the welfare of the service requires the nurse be properly fined or otherwise punished with derelictions. You told me you were perfectly delighted with the girls. She had 1,000 perfections and only one fault. You found you never could depend on her rapid journey up half sufficiently while he waited in a chilly chair for her to rearrange the warm bed. You filled up the duplicate of this paper and sent it back to the hospital by the hand of the nurse. How did you answer this question? Was the nurse at any time guilty of negligence, which will likely result in the patient's taking cold? Come, everything is decided by a bet here in California. $10 to 10 cents. You lied when he answered that question. He said, I didn't. I left it blank. Just so. You told a silent lie. We've left it be inferred that you had no fault to find him. She said, oh, was that a lie? How could I mention her one single fault? She said, we've been cruel. I said, why not always the lie when one can do good by it? Your impulse were right, but your judgment were crude. This comes of unintelligent practice. Observe the result of this inexpert deflection of yours. You know, Miss Jones, Willie is lying very low with scarlet fever. But your recommendation was so enthusiastic, the girl is their nurse. The worn-out family have all been trussed and sound asleep for the last 14 hours, leaving their darling with full confidence in the fatal land. And those fatal lands, because you, like young George Washington, have a reputation. However, if you are not going to have anything to do, I will come around tomorrow and we'll attend the funeral together. Of course, you'll naturally feel a peculiar interest in this case, as a personal one, in fact, as the undertaking. That we're all lost. Before we were halfway through, she was in a carriage and making 30 miles an hour towards the Jones mansion to save what were left of Willie, and tell all she knew about the deadly nurse. All of which was unnecessary, as Willie wasn't sick. I'd been lying myself. That same day, all the same, she sent a line up to the hospital, which filled up the neglected blank, and stated the facts, too, in the squarest possible manner. Now, you see, this lady's fault was not in line, but only in line injudiciously. She should have told the truth there, and made it up with the nurse with a fraudulent compliment further along in the paper. She could have said, in one respect, the sick nurse is perfection. She is on watch, she never snores. Almost any little pleasant lie would have taken the sting out of that troublesome but necessary expression of the truth. Lying is universal. We all do it. We all must do it. Therefore, the wise thing is for us to diligently Therefore, the wise thing is for us diligently to train ourselves to lie thoughtfully, judiciously, to lie with a good object and not an evil one, to lie for others' advantage and not our own, to lie healingly, charitably, humanely, not cruelly, earthily, maliciously, to lie gracefully and graciously, not awkwardly and clumsily, lie firmly, frankly, squarely, with head erect, not ultimately tortuously, with pusillanimous mien, as if being ashamed of our high calling. Then shall we be rid of the rank and pestilent truth that is rotting the land. Then shall we be great and good and beautiful and worthy dwellers in a world where even being benign nature habitually lies, except when she promises execrable weather. Then, I am a new and feeble student, this gracious heart. I cannot instruct this club. Joking aside, I think there is much need of wise examination in what sorts of lies are best, and also is to be indulged, seeing we must all lie and do all lie, and what sorts it may be best to avoid. And this is the thing which I feel I can confidently put in the hands of this experienced club, a right body who may be termed in this regard, without undue flattery, old masters. That was so good, I'm tempted to read it through again in its entirety. Now, is it as technically brilliant and like cutting as either of the Fitzgerald stories? Probably not. Especially not the second one. Right? They were very, very good and very, very meaningful and very, very heartfelt. That was a good calm. And it was also true. Like, he made good points there. He was very correct in his, helpful and judicious lie is a good thing. It's important to lie in good ways, and we do all lie. We tell people fibs that we mean well, but it's only right that we should lie in that manner. Can't disagree with him at all. But at the same time, it is also important to be careful where you lie. A lie can do harm if you're not doing it well, and it's important to practice the art of proper and careful lying. All that really well laid out in this little speech he gave to a society, all implying every single member of it was a terrible lying bastard, in most lovely and eloquent terms. I love the points of both the points where he attempted to give concrete present examples and then backed off. Had a lot of character to it. I'm trying to think how to say it. Like, that was what is it that I like about those? It's not. Well, I mean, the content is good, and like I said, I do appreciate the subject. Being as I am, a strong and firm believer in the virtue and importance of lying. But the tone of it is really what gets to me. Like that was fun. Not just in the content that I enjoyed, though I did enjoy the content, but in the flow of it, right? Like he makes his point and he brings it up and he like puts all these little needles and barbs in it, and he brings up these examples and he tells a story to make his point. And he's very clever about it, but he's not clever in a way that's like, ooh, I'm so smart, I'm the smartest person in the room. He's clever in a way that's like, yeah, this is a funny little joke. I'm subverting what you think is normally true, and I'm making good points. I like that. It's the way he tells it more than anything that I really like. I think that's the difference there, actually. Fitzgerald does a really good job of telling his story. Like the things he puts into them, like the things he sets up, the places, the people, like they're really well realised and they feel real, and the outcomes are very like impactful and tragic in both cases, and they really hit. But while reading it, I'm not having as much fun as I was having while I was reading that little bit by Mark Twain. Admittedly, that's probably easier to do when you have a shorter piece like that one. It's also what I liked about the Runyon as much, right? It's the voice of the author. Runyon has a very fun voice, and Twain has a very fun voice, but I think Twain probably has a more fun voice, although again, I only have that one little snippet to go off so far. That made it really enjoyable to read them. Whereas Fitzgerald, he told really good stories. I've a lot of respect. In fact, I still think that maybe that Two Wrongs might be one of the best things we've read, if not the best thing we've read in terms of story. But they weren't super fun to read. I don't know. I always would have described Twain as readable, but I did stutter and stumble over quite a few of his bits. Yeah, I'm hoping we find more Twain. I think the section I'm digging through has more Twain and more Fitzgerald in it pretty significantly, so we'll have to look through there for that. But I might also see if I can get some non-fiction for the next couple of days, just because we haven't had a lot of it. I mean, I think this does count as non. Like, it's an essay, so it's argumentative, so it's not. I don't know. Is an essay where you're arguing still non-fiction if you tell a story in it that might be fiction? I don't know. Something to debate, but yeah. Overall, I think I'm glad we ended on that note because it was very fun. Yeah. Good day today. Just about the 2 hour mark, which is nice. I know that wants me to be aiming for longer ones, but I'm struggling to find longer ones at the minute. I find a lot of short stories these days. But yeah, glad I went back out though for more because that last short story would have been a bit. Yeah. Thanks again for stopping by. Thanks again to Average Hunter for actually dropping in. First person to drop in while I'm reading the book. Real excited. Yeah. Hope you all have a lovely evening and ta-ra.